Alright, hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. As you can tell, I'm not at my house anymore. We are on vacation at the beach, and I figured this would be a fun change of pace, change of scenery, for my review of The Lies of Lamora by Scott Lynch. Same thing, spoiler, not spoiler review. I don't think the ocean's going to be too loud in the background. I'll check the recordings later. If it is too loud, unfortunately, I'll be in the beach house starting now. Alright, if we have good audio, we're still here. So, The Lies of Lamora by Scott Lynch is amazing. I really enjoyed my time with this book. It was a fast read. I plowed through this book in just a couple of days. I spent a lot of my reading at best was dedicated to The Lies of Lamora. I didn't have a lot of time to read, but I did get some time to read, and I finished up Lies there. Yeah, really great book. I really enjoyed it. I love Ocean's 11. Heist fiction is one of my favorite subgenres of fiction. I love Ocean's 11. I love Mistborn for that very reason. If you watch my Mistborn review, I love heists. And The Lies of Lamora it's not one big heist, right? There are a couple smaller heists kind of folded into that, but these criminals and con men and their skills and abilities are amazing. And I really enjoyed, I think the plot was really, really well done, right? Not only from the initial heist, right, which we spent a lot of our book focusing on, but also from the plots and plans that Locke and his crew came up with and had to deal with in the latter half of the book. And it's a book that does, I think in a lot of ways, almost wears its plot on its sleeve. It's not trying to hide from you how things are being done and what the end goal is, right? I think there are some heist movies that like to kind of hide from the viewer exactly how the heist is being pulled off until the heist is pulled off. I think Ocean's 11, I love the movie, but that's something that it does. But being able to see in real time as it happens the actual heist, and actually devoting a significant part of the book to the con itself, right? Mistborn, a significant portion of that book is not dealing with the con, it's dealing with the setup for the con and all that kind of stuff. This is a book that the majority of the time is spent actually executing what the larger plot at play, and I really enjoy that. I love seeing, almost chewing the scenery in some cases as they just run circles around everyone else. It's really great. The characters are phenomenal. I love all the heroes. I love a band of criminal mischief, and Locke and his crew are perfect for that role. I love the different humor and variety they bring to the story. The antagonists are phenomenal, ranging from the kind of antagonists to the outright antagonists are really awesome. I think the pacing of the story is phenomenal. I think that we never spend too long on something that we shouldn't, and we never gloss over something that we should have spent more time on. I think, like I said, plot is great, story is great, the characters are amazing, from the main characters to the supporting characters to the antagonists. The setting is amazing. This is a setting that feels a lot like Ankh-Morpork, and Scott Lynch just does an amazing job diving in and giving the city itself its own personality. It's not just a list of names and places and cultures and customs, but instead the city itself is a living, breathing character in the story, and it informs so many different choices about it. The world building is really awesome. I think it really adds to the story, and man, I really have very, very few critiques of this book. I actually, this is a book that I almost have nothing ill to say about it. There is some dialogue that comes off as a little corny, and despite the plot being pretty perfectly paced, there are some scenes that kind of stretch on a little bit longer than they should. I think kind of the middle to end section can drag a little bit, and then there's some humor that just doesn't quite land for me. But overall, this was a incredible ride from beginning to end, and it's just such a good book. I love Lies of Lamora. It was such an enjoyable read. Honestly, it is one of my biggest recommendations of the year. I think it's a book that pretty much, I wouldn't say pretty much anyone can enjoy. There are some things that I think that some readers may not like, But I think that this is a book that one of my number one most recommended books of this year. I think this is going to place very highly on my top 10 books of 2025. I enjoyed this book immensely. Highly recommend. But I will get to spoiler thoughts in a second. All right, so now to my spoiler thoughts for this book. I just want to dive into the characters. I loved all of the characters in this book. Locke is the perfect protagonist, in my opinion. He's someone who is smart, who is capable, who has great humor, but he's also someone who makes mistakes, big mistakes that cause a lot of problems, and his motivations and goals throughout the entire thing feel very reasonable. Especially to the end, towards the end, but also his vices are very reasonable. His a lot of times his over-eagerness to jump into things, his lack of thinking things thoroughly, and I think I think all of that works together and very much fit for the character that he is this very confident con man who is the best at what he does and has potentially grown complacent because of that. But I think that it works very well for the story, and I love him as a character. I love his foil. I love Jean. I think that they work very well together, and you can tell that they're the main duo, the main pair for the story, and that, yeah, sure, the other members of the Gentlemen Bastards are important, but once, spoiler section, once they die, you can tell that it was going to be Jean and Locke that are the two that are left, especially because of how different they are as characters, yet so complementary, right? Locke is the incredibly skilled con man. He can play any character. While Jean is, sure, he is the muscle, right? He is an incredibly skilled combatant, but Locke is not entirely incapable in a fight, and Jean is not entirely incapable in a more charismatic setting. I think that it would have been very easy to kind of shoehorn them into their roles, and I'm excited that Scott Lynch didn't do that. The rest of the Gentlemen Bastards were great comic relief. They're very funny. The twins are very funny. Bug is hilarious, and but they also provided that emotional backing, not just eventually when they die, and that's kind of the motivation to go after the Grey King, but just throughout the entire story, you could tell that they were almost the glue that kept that family together. It was really, really awesome to see. There are two kind of like sections of the story. The first heist it's amazing. Like I said, it was a lot of sections of that felt very much like chewing the scenery. The Gentlemen Bastards, who were just very good at their job and did their job very well, and they just ran circles around the nobles. And it was just super exciting to watch. It was a super enjoyable section to just read as they're so being so good at what they were. But it was also incredibly creative. There were some twists in ways that they did things that I didn't quite expect, and I think that it keeps you on your toes even if you've read a lot or watched a lot of kind of con or heist fiction. And then the second part, the more Grey King oriented sections of the book, phenomenal. I think that it transitions a lot more into this very slow, methodical paced story into this more vibrant, exciting, action-packed. Right, there's still that planning, there's still that preparation for what's eventually going to happen, but it's almost like the beat has gotten quicker, the pace has gotten faster, and it was an exciting change of pace to this more exciting, almost coming to a culmination towards the end of the novel, and that was really exciting, leading to an incredible climax, right? Starting from the incredible figuring out and the reveals at the top of the spires, I think they were called, on top of the spires or towers, that entire scene, and then the just gripping fight between the Grey King and Locke aboard the ship, and then just those final moments of Locke and Jean escaping, but also when the spider kind of realizes what is happening, and just so many impact. Just like when you see that, you're like the quote that he said earlier after the Grey King's assassins had killed the rest of the Gentleman Bastards, and it just comes back, and it is just so poetic, so just a bombastic ending. There's a lot of this book that feels cinematic, feels ripped straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster, and amazing. It was just such an amazing book. I think all the antagonists work really well. The Spider as more of the slow, calculated chess match, almost like antagonist. The Grey King as this unpredictable, incredible force. The Falconeer also in that respect, and really just those two kinds of forces. The Spider is the chasing force, right? Someone who's not quite there, who's always on the pursuit, but never quite making it towards the Gentleman Bastards. While the Grey King is the one who has the advantage. He won. He was winning for quite a while in there, and almost won at the very end. But I think having those two contrasting antagonists for our heroes was really important, and really served to highlight the skills of the Gentleman Bastards. The plot and story, there's not much I can really say more to that, just how perfectly paced it was and how great it was. I love the plot and story of Gentleman Bastards, and especially like the ending. It's the kind of story that lends to a second, a third installment, and I'm really excited. I have Red Seas Under Red Skies with me. I plan to do a lot of reading while I'm at the beach. I'm reading Gathering Storm currently, but I'm jumping over to that next. But overall, I highly, highly recommend The Lies of Locke, Lamora, and thank you so much for watching my beach video, and I hope to see you next time.